everyone, XQ Crafting here. Welcome to my channel. If you've been here before, welcome back. Today I'm gonna show you how I made this little flower fairy house with some paper clay and recycled materials. I started with a really small jar from Capers, but you can use any jar. I had some aluminum foil that is not used, but it was in my craft room, so it's very crumbed. And I didn't want to throw it away, so I just used to do the base of my flower. So I just molded to more or less the size of the lid, and then I'm gonna put that aluminum foil like a little ball with one side round in there, then a little smaller piece on the top. I never really worked with paper clay before, and I don't really know a lot about it, so I'm just learning as well. I'm just gonna let you see what I'm doing because I don't have a lot of experience myself. You still need to knead the clay and open it with a little rolling pin to make it smooth. One thing that I noticed is this clay, you cannot really make like fine details. Well, at least I couldn't. Maybe it's because I don't have experience with it. But I was having a hard time to make like small details with it. The clay looks a little bit rough. I don't know if it's because this one is not brand new. I bought it like a while ago. So maybe that's what it is. Or maybe that's just the texture of the clay. I really don't know. But to smooth it out, you can just use water. That's what I'm using in the little spray bottle you see on my desk. That's just water. And to glue the parts together, I also just spray water, and then you can just glue it, put the parts together, and then smooth it out. One thing that I noticed about this clay that I really like is it doesn't shrink too much after it dries, because I do have a homemade clay that I work more often with, and is like cold porcelain, and that one cracks and shrinks a lot when it dries, so it's a little bit harder to work with. You can make smaller details with it, but it shrinks a lot and it cracks. It tends to crack a lot when it's drying too, so it's a little bit harder to work with, but the final result when it works out is really nice. And after I cover the little jar with the clay and then I try to smooth it out, I just used a little tool, and I'm so sorry, I don't know the name of this tool because like I said, it's also new to me. Normally when I work with clay, I just use my fingers and improvised tools, but this one is just to smooth it out because I'm making like a door slash window there. It won't really be a door, it's mostly as a window, so I'm trying to smooth it out the edges so it doesn't look too rough, and then I'm rolling out a little string of clay so I can put not around the window but add kind of like a vine detail, because this little house, this fairy house, is gonna have a vine going around the whole house. And then I made some small leaves and I'm gonna glue it all around. So to make the holes, I'm just using like a piece of straw that I cut it. So after I use the straw to make the holes, I just try to smooth it out, and then I'm using my craft knife again to make another little small window on the other side of the jar. And to glue the parts that you adding now to the jar, you can use water to glue it on it, or you can just use wet, like white glue. I'm using water because as long as it's wet, both parts are wet, it should glue it with no issues. So I just use water to glue the whatever details I'm trying to add to the jar, and it will stick. You just have to press it and smooth it out a little bit, and it should stay in place. In here, try to do a little bit of everything that I enjoy, and I try to show things that I'm also learning, like this one. So if you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell icon below the video, activating your notifications so you don't miss any of the uploads. Please share with your friends if you like, and please don't forget to give me a thumbs up. I'm just adding some details so make it look more like wood. I should have done those like little details before I added the vine, but I didn't think about it. So after I added the vine, I just used like a paper clip to add the little texture to it. And my improvised tool, like a aka paper clip, it worked just fine to add the texture. If you have the tools, great. If not, just improvise. And as you can see, the clay dries lighter than what it was. To make the tiny leaves, I just used a little straw, cut it like a tiny circle. I tried to make it in the shape of a leaf, and then with the paper clip again, I added like the details in the middle. And just because the jar is already dry and the leaves are wet, I'm using white glue, Elmer's white glue, to put it together. But if both were wet, you could just spray it with water and that would work as well. And to make kind of a like leaf pattern, I'm using a sugar cutter. I think that's for cookies that I got on Amazon, and it's a tulip. I'm using the smaller petal to make the leaves, and then the bigger one I'm gonna use to make the actual flower petals. So what I'm doing, I'm just using again my paper clip to make the leaves detail, and I'm gonna put on the lid, the jar lid, is gonna look like the roof. And because I wanted the leaves to be facing a little bit outwards instead of just down, I'm adding an extra little piece of clay the bottom at the edge of the lid, and then I spray water because the bigger part is already dry, but because it's just paper clay, you can just spray water and you will glue it together. So I'm just smoothing it out with water. Once it's all done and smooth, and I'm gonna go ahead and glue the clay there, and because both now are wet, I'm just using water to glue it together. Because of the size of my jar, I used 16 of those leaves. But obviously, if your jar is bigger and smaller, and depending on what shape you want to do your little fairy house, you might use more or less. And then to make the petals, I'm using the bigger cutter and then the actual mold, silicone mold. I just squeeze it because the clay is wet, and then it comes out as a really pretty petal. I struggled so much to leave these petals up, like actually standing, because I'm trying to make a lily. Even though these are tulips petals, I'm trying to make something that resemble a lily, a pink lily. So I did struggle a lot to keep those petals up. I found a way, but I did struggle before that happens. And then I remember that the flower should have a little stem in the middle. So I just made a little roll of clay and then put a piece of wire inside to keep it up, and then added a little bit of clay on the top of the lid and just placed it there so it looks like the stem, because it's gonna be easier to put it now than later when the flower is dry. And then to try to keep the petals up, I just use paper, computer paper, and made little rolls with Scotch tape, and then I use that to make the petal kind of drape down and it looked like a petal. But it's not gonna work when I like make the second layer of petals. It's just work for this one, mainly the two that it has the tubes underneath. But the third one, I'm struggling because I don't have a way to make it stay up. So what I did is I put the paper kind of like against the lid itself and then trying to hold the petal up, and I just left it there to dry, and once it did, everything stayed in place. And this stem, I'm just gonna make with a tiny bit of clay a little mushroom that is gonna be kind of resembling the chimney of the house, but isn't at the same time, it's just the flower stem. To make the petals stay in place, because you saw that I dried the first three on the middle, but the other three towards the bottom, I was having such a hard time to keep it in place. So I just got another piece of paper, just computer paper, and I cut it a third of it, so it's kind of the same height of my petals. So when I wrap it around the jar, it stays in place, so the petals have something to rest and it's not gonna flop down while it's drying. It was really droopy, so I had to improvise, and that's what I did. The paper worked fine. Once they dried, it was perfect. And then I just had to cut the little Scotch tape that was holding the paper together, and that's how my flower looks. It kind of looks like a pineapple, but it's not. It was supposed to be a lily. And after it dries, like I said, it doesn't crack. So that's it. I'm gonna try to make another video adding colors to it. I have no idea how that's gonna turn out, but if you wanna see it, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!